Hi guys, and welcome to this video. I hope you're all doing well. So today guys, I have two cases for you, actually not one, but they are quite short cases, which is why I'm going to bring you two cases in this video instead of one. Both are very disturbing cases, especially the first one. I discovered a picture for this case randomly that I have to say is the most shocking picture I've seen for any criminal case that I've done on my channel, just to show you how disturbing and graphic this case is. And I'm going to blur out part of this picture because I personally would not want anyone else to even see this picture. So I'm going to put a disclaimer out that in this video it is very disturbing and we're going to be talking about cannibalism. Today guys, we are going to be going to the island nation and country of Papua New Guinea. So for those that don't know much about Papua New Guinea, I'm just going to give you like a little bit of a background as well, because obviously it's a bit of a lesser known country. So Papua New Guinea, as I just mentioned, is an island country in Asia, actually between like Asia and Australia. And it's divided with Papua New Guinea on one side of the island and the other side is Indonesia. So a lot of people have heard of Indonesia before, but they haven't necessarily heard of Papua New Guinea before. So while you've got Indonesia on one side, which I'd say is fairly modernized, progressive country, you know, you've got normal jobs, schools, universities, etc. You've got Papua New Guinea on the other side, which is what I would refer to, and other people termed as more as what we call a developing country. Papua New Guinea has like its main city, which I believe is Port Moresby, and the rest of the country itself is mainly very rural, and I would almost call jungle-like, I want to say, and only 14% of the population actually live in the city itself. The rest of the population all live in either rural or jungle areas, just to show you like more kind of how rural the actual country still is. The country itself was colonized by Australia, by the UK, by Germany, and only became independent as a nation in 1975, which, if we look at the spectrum of things, it's still fairly recent in actual fact. Now, Papua New Guinea has 840 languages, which is enormous, and its official languages are English, and they have another language I think called Tok-Pisin, which is kind of like a Creole kind of offshoot like of English, you could say, like Pidgin English almost, but their own version. And while you've got people who live in its main city, which are quite like more modernized, while you've still got people living in these rural and kind of jungle-like areas, and you have actual tribes in Papua New Guinea, and you've got things like sorcery going on the island, which is very prevalent, and you've got cannibalism, which actually still exists on the island as well. And there are also cults on the island, but cannibal cults as well. And when I'm telling you guys these things, I'm not telling you like 20, 25, 30 years ago. These things are, for example, still happening within the last 3 years to 5 years, even up to today. These are still very recent practices that happen within this country. The country has started to develop and grow more economically because they have a lot of gold and copper and other agricultural resources, and this is where the island has economically started to grow at about 40%, but it is quite a slow development, you could say, in regards to the growth of the actual country and the island. Now, for my first case today, guys, I don't even know how to start this. I've never had a case where I literally do not even know how to tell this story, even though it's a very short story. Essentially, there were a mother and father who were married, and this case is fairly recent. When I say recent, this happened in like 2012, 2013, but it was a couple who were married. They separated and they had a little girl together, and the mother took custody of the little girl, and it sounds like she had full custody and the father was living on his own. He hadn't remarried, he hadn't had any kids or anything. So the mother, she's gone to see the father to drop off the child, you know, for like visitation, so the father can see the child, right? And when she's gone to drop off the child, and then she's now left, so she's gone off, the father has picked up his daughter, she's 3 years old, so she's quite small obviously, and just lunged into her neck area and started to bite her, right? Now, when I read this already, I was like, this is like something out of some prehistoric, like something that you can't even imagine exists in the 2000s, in the year 2000s. Like, it's just insane. Now, there was a passing by called, I think he was called John Kenny, and he saw this scene, and I cannot even imagine someone having to walk past this and see this. Like, you're just going about your day, you're going to work, you're on your lunch break, and you just walk past someone doing this. This is insane. And at the same time, there were 2 little boys which were like up a coconut tree, like just playing, and they saw this. So there were basically 3 onlookers looking at this man lunging at his 3-year-old daughter. So what happened is John Kenny started to try to chase the man to stop the incident, but the man started running away, and the little boys was like staring at him, and he actually started laughing, and obviously for obvious reasons they were terrified, and they ran off. And while they ran off, they actually ran to also get help. Like, these poor little boys, I don't even know how they were in a state to even go and get someone for help, but they ran off to get other villagers for like help. And then John Kenny, this other passerby, he was like trying to chase the man. He was actually called Rex Eric, the father. I forgot to mention that. He was chasing Rex into like the bush now, into like the forest, like the jungle area, to try and get him off this little girl. Luckily, because the little boys had gone off in the other direction to go and get help, they alerted all the villagers. A mass group of villagers came from different directions, and they managed to get hold of Rex Eric and contain him until the police arrived. And unfortunately, by the time the police arrived, the little girl had already passed away. Like, her injuries were so extreme and so severe that she didn't survive the attack. Now guys, I searched for so many follow-up articles on this case because I wanted to see what the outcome was, what the sanction was for Rex Eric, the father, and what, you know, any update on the mother and all of this, or the rest of the family. And I couldn't find anything. This happened in like October 2013, and I was thinking, by now there must be, like a year later, 2 years later, there's got to be an outcome, there's got to be an update. And in Papua New Guinea, they actually still have the death penalty. So they will either do like a very like lifetime sentence, I was going to say long sentence, a lifetime sentence, or they would give the death sentence for something like this. But I have read so many articles, guys, and I still cannot find any outcome for this case, unfortunately. I'm now going to move on to the second case, and this case started, I say started because you'll see what I mean in a bit. It started in 2006, so it was before the previous case actually. It started in 2006, and it starts with a man called Cornelius. Cornelius was a news reporter actually for Channel 7, which I believe is an Australian news channel. I thought it was a New Zealand news channel, but I believe it's actually an Australian news channel. And Cornelius was actually living in Sumatra, which is an Indonesian island. So he'd gone to Papua Guinea in 2006 to actually sort of news report and do documentary sort of press newspaper articles. Don't really know how to explain that. Newspaper articles, I suppose you could say, on Papua Guinea and like tribes in Papua Guinea and all of this kind of thing. And I have to say, guys, I remember in the early 2000s there were a lot of documentaries about Papua New Guinea, and it was kind of still, you know, like that country where there's a lot of things which are undiscovered and unknown still in comparison with a lot of other countries. Like in the 80s and 90s it was the Amazon jungle, and like early 2000s it was all like Papua New Guinea. So Cornelius, this reporter from Channel 7, had gone to Papua New Guinea, as I said, to, you know, research the different tribes that live there, do like some news articles on the newspaper articles, etc., on the different tribes and their practices and all of this kind of thing, basically, right? And at the time, he was researching a tribe called the Cannibal tribe. And the Cannibal tribe, they live in like the jungle in Papua New Guinea, basically. And they still exist to this day, right? And part of the Cannibal tribe's practices were actually cannibalism. That was part of what they do. I don't know if they were doing sorcery as well. I don't think so, actually, because some tribes do sorcery and some don't. But one of their practices was cannibalism, and it still is currently, right? But for some reason he was quite safe, and he was just sort of like more there kind of, you know, observing what's going on as opposed to like interviewing them, basically. And the more time that he spent with the tribe, like this is over like several days, etc. So he'd go there for a day, then leave, go back to the city centre like Port Moresby, stay in a hotel, then come back again, spend some more time with them. And this is kind of what he did over a number of days, right? And as he sort of went there, obviously the tribe started to recognise him. And one of the little boys called Wawa, he was a 6-year-old little boy, he started to follow Cornelius, the news reporter, around. So as Cornelius is like filming different things and observing the tribe and all of this little boy Wawa started to follow Cornelius around everywhere. And then Cornelius started to ask questions about Wawa, like who are his parents in the tribe, and you know, who's his brothers and sisters, and all of this kind of thing. And someone in the tribe told him that actually Wawa's parents had died, and he was actually an orphan. His parents had actually recently died, and that he was due to be killed and eaten in cannibalism. Now imagine entering somewhere, you're there to do like a news report, and you're then told there's a child that's about to be eaten. Like honestly guys, like this whole video guys that I'm filming for you now, like I sort of sit here and think like how, like I don't even know how it's to even hear something like that. Like it's insane. And the reasoning behind why they wanted to eat Wawa was because they said both the parents I think had died at the same time very recently, and the tribe was saying that Wawa, you know, was like a sorcerer, and there was some like malediction on him, and that's why the parents had died, basically. And I think Wawa did have brothers and sisters, but the tribe was saying it's because of him for some reason that the parents have passed away. And so he's basically this little boy on borrowed time, because it's a matter of time before they're going to consume him. And so at the time, Cornelius, I think he had a videographer and a producer from Channel 7 with him. So they were like, you know, there he had someone, I think either a lady with him or 2 other people with him at the same time. So while he's there kind of taking notes, observing, he's got someone, you know, like a videographer filming, a producer kind of person there. There's a few of them, like 2 or 3 of them. So he consults them, and they start having this discussion of like what to do, because he's like, I was just here to do a news report, and now I'm discovering this child is about to be killed. Like, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to leave this child here. Like, he felt so strongly, within reason, obviously, that he didn't want to leave the little boy there. And it became clear why the little boy is following him, right? And then the other lady that was there, I think she was either the videographer or the producer, one of the producers for Channel 7 in Australia. They both devised a plan to take Wawa with them. So they got on a plane and they took Wawa back to Sumatra, which, as I said earlier, is an island which is part of Indonesia, basically. And the news reporter Cornelius, he decided to adopt or like foster Wawa as his own little child. And actually he was already married with kids. He had a few kids already. I don't know how many, but it sounds like he maybe had 2 or 3 small children already. And he decided to foster Wawa as his own and take him in, and took him back to Sumatra, put him in school and everything, and treated him like his own son. And Wawa adapted really well to the family. Like, it was just like they'd always been together, basically. And that was in 2006. And then in 2019, Wawa was going to university in Sumatra, and he was studying sports science at university. So you can see, like, there's been a whole progression. Still living with Cornelius's family, everything's going well. And he turns around to Cornelius one day and is like, I want to go back to Papua New Guinea. I want to go back to my tribe. And Cornelius is like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? Like, a bit like, you know, like, what the actual hell? you know, after the situation that obviously occurred, which was so extreme. And I was like, I want to go and confront my tribe, as in I want to confront them, and I want to find out why they thought it was basically okay to put me in that position and think that they could eat me for cannibalism. Like, and he wanted to go back and confront the tribe on this. And so in 2019, Wawa goes back to Papua New Guinea and he finds his tribe, and he goes back with another news reporter. I can't remember what channel it is. I think it's like, you know, the ones that do 60 Minutes Australia or something, like another news channel. And it was a different reporter. And he goes back with Wawa and they find his tribe, right? And the tribe recognise him and everything. Even now he's in his early 20s. They recognise him. And he finds his brother and his 2 sisters in the tribe as well, right? And the brother and the sisters, they're actually really excited to see him. Like, they didn't know what's happened to him, I think, and everything. I think at the time they couldn't fully understand, like, where he's going. And they're really excited. And there's, like, images and videos of them hugging and everything. All this was filmed, right? And then Wawa confronts one of the elders in the tribe and is like, why did you think it was okay to put me in this position as a 6-year-old child? Like, this is unacceptable and these practices need to stop. This is like archaic, basically. And he confronts them, right? Which you're thinking, these are people that eat people and that still eat people till today. Like, do you know what I mean? How can you confront them? Like, they could just turn around and just kill you, right? And the elders actually say, do you know what? You're right. We need to, like, be a bit more progressive because times have moved on a bit and we can't just, like, do this just because we're angry with someone or something. And so, like, progress is being made, which is, like, you know, like, massive. And then after speaking with his younger brother, he's got a younger brother in the tribe, he actually discovers that his brother is in the same predicament that he was in, and that actually his brother has been put in a predicament where they were about to consume him for cannibalism. He was about to be killed, like, when Wawa literally turned up at that time. Can you imagine? So then he confronts the tribe on that, and the tribe's like, no, we're not going to do that now. We're going to, like, exile him, like, put him to a side in the village or whatever, but we're not going to kill him. He's like, okay. And then he wants to convince his younger brother to, like, come with him back to Sumatra. And then for some reason his brother can't come with him. I'm not sure why that is, actually. I couldn't find why. But his brother's, like, safe. Like, the tribe's not going to kill him and everything. And then Wawa goes back to Sumatra. He's still living with Cornelius, still now with his adoptive family. He says he's very happy. He loves them as well. He appreciates everything they've done for them. But he still intends to, like, on and off, like, you know, go back when he can and visit the tribe. Like, it's still part of who he is as a person. And he wants to still, you know, visit his brother and his sisters there and everything. And I thought that story was an amazing outcome, because that could have ended so badly. You know, like, some people, you know, you see documentaries and it used to be back in the day, like in the 80s and the 90s, where people, as I said earlier, would go into the Amazon or other places that were a lot more undiscovered at that time and sort of try and interact with tribes. And then much later in the 2000s, people started saying it's not good to do that, you know, and interfere with the tribes. And also because we as humans are prone to a lot of diseases while we've lived in cities and things, we could be bringing in those diseases to more remote tribes and affecting them as well, and things like this, right? So a lot of people have said things like that, but this is a case where a little boy has been rescued from his tribe thanks to a news reporter that went to, you know, observe them and see how they are. This little boy's life was saved, in actual fact. Had that news reporter not been there, this little boy would actually be dead. And then miraculously, the little boy's then gone back to his tribe to visit them and educated them on not killing people. Like, this is such an insane story, right? Now, as I said earlier, guys, these are just 2 cases of 2 cannibalism stories on the island and country of Papua New Guinea. There are many cases. There are not a few. This is a country where there are many, many cases of cannibalism, of sorcery. And I feel like where I've heard cases before in parts of Africa on things like this, I feel like Papua New Guinea, they're just on, like, a next level. Like, there is another level where there's something else going on. When you've got only 14% of the population that live in the city and the rest don't. And even when I say the city, guys, like I've seen documentaries previously on Port Moresby, and Port Moresby does not look like Tokyo. It doesn't look like Paris, right? It looks like a village town. That's how I would say personally that Port Moresby looks like. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with a country being, you know, in development, I want to say, right, and not being necessarily a first world country. There's nothing wrong with that. There's loads of countries which are still in development, and that's absolutely fine. The difference with other countries that are still in development is that they don't necessarily have cannibalism going on, and they've not got this next level of sorcery going on. That is the difference. And other countries, they might have more major cities and different economies and other things going on, which mean that the countries are growing differently. Obviously, Papua New Guinea in itself was only, you know, freed in brackets of colonization and became independent fairly recently as a country. Like, I know there's other countries which are recent countries in brackets, but those are what I refer to as first world countries. So obviously you don't have things like cannibalism going on. And so, you know, I appreciate that there is a different situation going on in Papua New Guinea. It's a whole different situation. But still, the things that are going on, you think, like, in 2026, like, this country is still a country that's got, you know, a president, a prime minister, it's got a monarchy, it's got an economy, it's got things where you think, like, you know, it's got police, there's got to be something else that can contain these situations. Anyway, guys, I will leave this video where it is. Let me know down below what you think of these cases. I know they are quite shocking, to be honest. These are two cases where I personally felt a bit disturbed by these cases, but I wanted to bring them to you guys because, as I said on my channel, I've said it before previously as well, the cases that I bring to you guys are cases that don't get enough exposure in Europe, mainland Europe specifically. And this is why I like to raise awareness of things, because these things do exist that we are even unaware of in mainland Europe, right? Anyway, if you've got any more suggestions for videos down below, or also countries maybe that I haven't covered on my channel that you would potentially like me to cover cases on, please leave those suggestions down below, and I will see you again very, very soon for another video.